The newly released Korean movie in 2023 is so daring to film that it exposes the dark side of Korean politics. No wonder the film won the box office championship in its first week of release. Today, let's take a look at where this movie stays. The story takes place in 1992 during the 14th parliamentary election in South Korea. A man named Lee Jae-hong, in order to end his political roots that were about to plummet, began to work hard to run for this term of parliament. Hae-jong had ideals and ambitions, and coupled with his outstanding abilities, he quickly became one of the candidates for the National Assembly. Even in the eyes of his leaders, his election was understandable. This recognition further boosted Hae-jong's confidence, so he began to speak more vigorously on stage and even frequently went deep into the crowd. Hae-jong said that he was able to go from having nothing to this step, relying on the support of the people. In order to repay everyone, as long as he is successfully elected, whether it is the government's real estate development project or anything else, he will firmly stand with the people and resolutely crack down on those things that are not conducive to the people. At the same time, we call on everyone to hold onto their property tightly. When they become members of Congress, they will definitely maximize the compensation for demolition. This statement is simply going deep into the hearts of the people, and people are shouting Hae-jong's name in support of it. At this point, Hae-jong has become the biggest favorite among the candidates for the exposed legislative election, and even he himself believes that the election for legislators is inevitable. However, as soon as he returned home that night, he saw a group of thugs bullying his family. Election for legislators is inevitable. However, as soon as he returned home that night, he saw a group of thugs bullying his family. Hae-jong quickly stepped forward to stop, but was beaten up by the other party. At a critical moment, a mafia boss known as President Jin came over and stopped his subordinates. He came this time to ask Hae-jong for his account. It turns out that running for election is not just about talking nonsense, but also requires a certain amount of financial support. Hae-jong, who already has no money, borrowed a lot of money from President Jin before and promised to introduce him to several good projects after he was elected. However, President Jin told him that the final candidate for the legislature had been determined, and Hae-jong had no hope. This directly shocked Hae-jong. The election has just begun, so there is no such thing as a confirmed candidate. Under President Jae-in's narration, Hae-jong realized that he was a clown from beginning to end. It turned out that not long ago, due to this presidential election, politicians conspired together to maintain their power and use the development project in Busan to raise campaign funds. To this end, they also found a powerful tycoon who could shake the political world, Kwon Chun-tae, to cooperate with Lee Won-tae. This person is both wealthy and wealthy, especially his real estate projects are spread throughout the country. Although he agreed, he demanded that the newly elected congressional artists must be the ones he trusts. And so, because of one of his words, Hae-jong, who was already a popular candidate, became famous from it. Hae-jong, who learned the news, found Lee Won-tae's place early the next morning. I hope Lee Won-tae can give himself a chance, because he has already put everything on top of him. However, because Hae-jong does not listen to him and always helps those who are preparing to develop properties to fight against him, even if Hae-jong kneels down to beg him, he still mercilessly leaves the position of a legislator to the people he trusts. And this person is exactly the former colleague who is always at odds with Hae-jong. After being mocked by the other party, Hae-jong angrily left here, and from this moment on he decided to resist this unfair fate no matter what. So on that night, he bribed his old classmate with all his wealth, allowing him to steal all the confidential information of the Busan development project. After obtaining it, he promised to give it to the other party, and if he was elected, his benefits would definitely be indispensable. Afterwards, Hae-jong once again approached President Jin, who used the information of the Busan development project as a bargaining chip and gave it to the other party. He stated that the value of this development project was at least 500 billion Korean won. As long as the planned development area was determined and they dared to obtain in advance, they would earn a lot, and no one knows how much they would make. However, the premise is that President Jin needs strong support to continue his campaign for the Expo member. Only when Hae-jong is successfully elected can they use this identity to participate in eating meat and drinking soup. After a brief moment of reflection, President Jin agreed directly, but he himself was not enough. President Jin, along with Hae-jong, the former president, who was also a gangster and enlisted in the military. When President Zhang reviewed the project materials in his hands, Hae-jong promised that once he became a member of parliament, he would bring him more rewards. Silly, the president of San Huzang also agreed. After all, this project alone could bring him rich profits. Therefore, the two decided to work together to send Hae-jong to the throne of a member of parliament. However, because Hae-jong was previously famous by Lee Won-tae, he can only continue to run as an independent at this time. In the following time, gang leaders are operating with money in the dark. After campaign posters of all sizes spread throughout the region, Hae-jong began giving speeches on stage every day. His outstanding eloquence and passionate speeches quickly gained the support of a large number of people, and Hae-jong's popularity also began to soar. In order to stabilize and attract more people, President Jin packaged a large amount of money and delivered it to supporters, while at night he went to solve those competitors who relied on black and white tactics. Hae-jong once again became the most popular candidate for the exposed Legislative Council. All these news were also seen by Lau Kwon. He only made a phone call, and Chief Park, who counted the final votes, was brought over. Because Hae-jong's vote count has greatly exceeded that of the person selected by Lau Kwon decided to directly modify the results of both sides this time. He used the daughter of the chief investigator to threaten him to tamper with the data in the background. In the end, under some coercion and inducement, Park Chief modified the vote count, and Hae-jong once again became the scapegoat. However, after modifying the data, Chief Park did not receive any benefits. Instead, he was beaten by Lau Kwon's subordinates and thrown directly into the water afterwards, hoping to destroy the body and exterminate it. The next morning, Hae-jong and others were looking forward to seeing the upcoming election results, but the result was that he lost to his arch-rivals. The headline score. Huge gap directly silenced Hae-jong, who didn't know that his efforts were not worth mentioning in front of the big shots. In sharp contrast to his side, Park Hyung-nan, who successfully ran for the position of National Assembly member, expressed his loyalty to old Kwon when Kwon seemed to have no intention of letting go of Hae-jong and others. Upon learning that the development project had been leaked, he first bribed Hae-jong's mate and prepared to revise the planned real estate project in Busan. For this, Lau Kwon-ming loaded the cash into a truck and directly sent it to the senior management. Afterwards, he also recorded in detail the whereabouts of the money and stuffed it into a drawer filled with various notes. The next day, the government released the revised development project for Lau Kwon, and with this move, the former president who had teamed up with Hae-jong directly turned against him. Because Hae-jong provided information on the Busan development project, he bought a lot of land in the planned area through connections. The development area that has been announced now is not the one he purchased, and the precious land has become abandoned. In addition, Hae-jong's failure to be elected means that all his efforts and investment have been wasted. He was extremely angry and directly let his hands go to deal with President Jin. He suspected that President Jin had used this method to annex himself. Yeah, that night, President Zhang's subordinates ambushed President Jin directly, making it difficult to defeat him with the fists. His subordinates, President Jin, were beaten and lay on the ground. Fortunately, at a critical moment, his younger brother arrived in time and saved him. Not long after, unwilling Hae-jong and President Jin tied up his old classmate together, and under his questioning, they found out that it was Lau Kwon who had modified the development project without authorization. Hae-jong hated this old classmate and knew it for a long time. He deliberately kept it from him, so he cowed and helped but beat him up and vented his grievances for many days. Subsequently, in order to maintain stability, President Jin continued to support himself. He stated that he would do everything possible to deal with Lau Kwon, and President Jin did not want all his previous efforts to turn into running friends. He gave Hae-jong the period of time to see how he could counterattack. So Hae-jong pondered for a whole night and finally decided to fish to death with Lau Kwon. He compiled the incident of Lau Kwon modifying and planning development project without authorization into a report material, and then found who had previously dealt with him, hoping that he could make this matter public in order to persuade everyone to step down. On the other hand, President Zhang, in retaliation, went to the prosecutor's office to report Hae-jong and President Jin, saying that they had previously used funds to go around soliciting prostitution for Hae-jong in order to campaign, which seriously violated laws and regulations. But what he didn't expect was that the people from the prosecutor's office were friends of Hae-jong, who directly told him about this matter. So Hae-jong called President Jin and asked him to get rid of him no matter what. On that night, President Jin also ordered people to ambush President Zhang. First, he beat him, then poured a lot of Bayu into his mouth and finally caused an accident. With the death of President Zhang, Hae-jong gradually turned black from this moment on. However, things went surprisingly smoothly. As soon as Lau Kwon's unauthorized modification of the development project was published in the newspaper, it immediately aroused strong public dissatisfaction. Moreover, Hae-jong reported it under his real name, so he called him to anger his hometown. As a last resort, he had to invite Hae-jong for negotiations. But both sides have already formed a bond, and despite the promising future of Hae-jong, he simply does not agree to the monetary compensation mentioned by Lau Kwon. So Lau Kwon threatened him that if he didn't compromise, he might have an accident someday, and no one could have a chance. Angry Ha Jong said that he still had a bigger chip waiting for him, and then turned around and left here. Lau Kwon seemed to have also been intimidated. Seemed that Ha Jong's oil and salt were not coming in, he could only bribe the newspaper house. Not only did he make them stop reporting on this matter, but he also fired journalist Song. And in order to prevent Ha Jong from turning the tables, Lau Kwon happened to take advantage of the dying person of the president to start collecting evidence of their crimes. However, during the investigation, both of them strongly denied it, and the police had no evidence, so they had to let them leave in the end. Afterwards, Lau Kwon secretly found President Jin. After a detailed discussion, he used money and trajectory to plot against President Jin. The other party promised to reveal whether Ha Jong still had any cards in his hand. It seems that in the face of interests, there are no permanent friends or enemies. On Ha Jong's side, he was just trying to scare Lau Kwon before. Unexpectedly, Lau Nai naively sent him a set of trump cards, which was that Park who tampered with the election votes. The other party told journalist Song all the truth, and at this time, journalist Song gave the recording to Ha Jong. As long as Ha Jong publicly disclosed this matter at the media conference, there is a high chance that they will overthrow the old power under public protest. With this trump card in hand, Ha Jong's confidence doubled. He and journalist Song sorted out Lau Kwon's criminal information overnight. The next morning, a special media conference was about to begin, and reporters of all sizes rushed here to prepare for a major event that would cause a sensation throughout the country. And Ha Jong also got into President Jae-in's car preparing to go to the press conference venue. However, to everyone's surprise, the press conference had already exceeded the deadline for a long time and there was no sign of Ha Jong. And just as people were puzzled, Ha Jong's classmate, who was in charge of the Busan development project, walked up to the podium and took out a speech, taking all the blame on himself, admitting that he had modified the Busan development project plan for the sake of money. Obviously, this guy was pushed out to take the blame. And he also had to do this because his family was all under the control of Lau Kwon. The reporter, who had a premonition that something was going wrong, quickly ran to call Ha Jong. But after calling for a long time, no one answered. And what he didn't know was that a group of people in black quietly came behind him. At this point, Ha Jong had already been tied up by President Jin, and even Chief Park, who survived the disaster. However, this time, even if Chief Park has great abilities, it will be difficult for him to survive. As the lid was completely sealed, people once again sank him into the sea, leaving only Ha Jong behind. President Jin was preparing to cause an accident for him, but before Ha Jong died, President Jin mocked him by saying that he should accept his life because like him and compete with others. After finishing these words, he gestured to his subordinates to create a false image of fear of crime and suicide for Ha Jong. Just as President Jin believed that the overall situation was timed, the biggest reversal of the show came with it. I saw President Jin knocked down to the ground with a heavy stick, and the person who took action was his most trusted younger brother. Originally, just last night, Ha Jong, holding the trump card, had a solo meeting with Lau Kwon. He presented all the evidence he hadn't negotiated with him. As long as Lau Kwon supported him back to power, he was willing to stand firmly with Lau Kwon. At this point, Ha Jong had already begun to black it out in order to gain power. After weighing the pros and cons, Lau Kwon agreed to him, but to become true friends, both sides must hold each other's handle. So the two of them recorded each other's undisclosed criminal evidence. After the exchange, they were in the same league. In order to eliminate those who knew the inside, Ha Jong and Lau Kwon secretly teamed up and successfully solved President Jin, journalist Song, and Chief Park. So Ha Jong became the type of person he used to dislike the most. That night, Ha Jong accompanied Lau Kwon as a member of parliament to a hotel, and Lau Kwon personally put on the member's badge for him. From their tone of voice, the two seemed to have been friends for many years, completely forgetting the scene of wanting to kill each other not long ago. When Lau Kwon introduced Ha Jong to other politicians, he obtained the power and status he had always dreamed of. This concludes the film. It has to be said that this crime movie in South Korea is really shocking. While satirizing it, it also exposes the unfair lives of ordinary people. However, this is precisely the extreme reality. If you like it, I recommend watching it. The original title of the film is External Secrets: The Birth of Power. Thank you for watching. See you in the next issue.